She was trotting out. Nobody's affected. Rachel Reeves says so. Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government? I'm going to finish, if I may, with a message to the government. I do. Not a shouty one. It's this. For the sake of everybody here, and for all the farmers who are stuck at home today, paralysed by a fog of despair over what's been foisted upon them, I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake. That's the big thing to do, admit it, and back down.
Keir Starmer just detonated like a microwave burrito, courtesy of Jeremy Fracas King Clarkson. Yes, that Clarkson. The man who's crashed more cars than Starmer's changed positions just torched him in the most gloriously undiplomatic way imaginable. If you thought Starmer had a spine, think again. Clarkson turned him into wobbly political blancmange. What exactly did he say to send Starmer into full crimson-face malfunction? Oh, stick around. This implosion is juicier than Boris Johnson's group chats.
Jeremy Clarkson has said, I'm surrounded by farmers and plasterers and brickies and butchers, and all I hear all day long is that there is too much immigration. He said, but if they say this out loud or if they go on a march, they are told by the London elite that they are far-right extremists or racist thugs. For the most part, he says, they're not. They're just people who know that they have to shut up when the last post is played and that a cheese rolling down a hill is funny. And he said, the fact is that 4 million people voted for reform. And he said, and more than that voted for Brexit. And Keir Starmer is upsetting them by labelling them as modern-day Hitlers. And he says, I therefore suggest that both he and his friends at the BBC calm down the rhetoric, or we could be heading for some serious trouble. And he's absolutely right.
Starmer, the man whose charisma could be outshone by a damp sock, has made headlines again. Not for a bold policy, not for inspiring the nation, but for getting politically eviscerated by the bloke who reviews tractors and once punched a BBC producer over a steak. When the guy best known for racing caravans off cliffs makes you look like the out-of-touch one, it's time to update your LinkedIn headline.
And where have you got the 96% figure
Well,
from?
you've got 96%. Well, the same place that Rachel Reeves does, from the middle of her head.
Right.
From the Sixth Form Debating Society that she was no doubt a member of.
Okay.
Which formed her opinions and yours.
I am not expressing opinions. I'm literally asking you questions. You know that, Mr. Clarkson.
Right.
So, what is your message to this government?
Please back down, please.
And get the money from where?
Well, they've got 40 billion.
And Clarkson didn't just dismantle Starmer, he harvested him. Forget surgical. This takedown was agricultural. Picture a Land Rover Defender ploughing straight through Starmer's personality, reversing for good measure, then lighting a cigar off the engine block while laughing at the hypocrisy rising from Westminster like diesel smoke. Starmer carries himself with the courage of a man asking to cancel a gym membership he never used. Every time he speaks, it's like watching someone try to thread a political needle without offending anyone, ever. You can almost hear the focus groups whispering in his ear. And right when he's trying to prove he's not a Tory intern doing work experience in the opposition benches, in roars Clarkson, brash, loud, unfiltered, and politically suplexes him through the floor.
Why are you here, Mr. Clarkson?
Well, because I'm here to support farmers.
Right. Are you angry?
It's difficult to be angry on somebody else's behalf. That's like being... Yes, no, I'm not angry on someone else's behalf.
Right. So it's not about you. It's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there. Classic.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. It's not the fact that I bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. The fact.
You told the Sunday Times in 2021 that's why you bought it.
These people.
At a time when Britain's crying out for authenticity, boldness, anything, Starmer keeps handing out policy pamphlets like he's pitching a new HR protocol, and the fence-sitting, Olympic level. If indecision were a sport, he'd be taking gold with an apologetic shrug. Tea or coffee? Starmer would commission a 6-month study. Clarkson, the man who once tried to cross the channel in a pickup, looks more in touch with real people than the guy who wants to run the country.
He will know, of course, that the agricultural industry is one of the most difficult areas to decarbonise, requiring substantial investment. On that basis, will his family farms tax help or hinder?
I'm very pleased that at the budget we put £5 billion over the next 2 years into farming and food sustainability, which is hugely important to support our farmers. He will also, no doubt, have noticed the money that's been allocated to deal with flooding, which is a constant cause of problems for farmers, and the money that's been put into dealing with the outbreak of disease, which is devastating for so many farmers.
And that's the sting. Clarkson's insults worked because they were true. Starmer's strategy seems to be wait for the Tories to implode, then cautiously emerge with a spreadsheet. It's political beige in human form. The kind of leadership that advertises itself as not actively terrible, like a restaurant boasting its food hasn't recently killed anyone. Clarkson didn't just call him out, he held up a mirror. And Starmer blinked. Every time he moves, it feels like he's trying to please people who still think Tony Blair was misunderstood. His idea of boldness is changing the header font on a policy memo. Remember when Labour stood for something? Now it's just mild disapproval, unless that's too controversial. It's not even passionate disapproval. It's the kind your gran gives when someone brings pineapple pizza to a family dinner.
I'm here to support the farmers. It's that simple. They need all the help they can get, really. If she'd have wanted to take out the likes of James Dyson and investment bankers and so on, she would have used a sniper's rifle. But she's used a blunderbuss and she's hit all this lot. It was, as I understand it, it was a very rushed last-minute decision. And I think, we all make mistakes in life, and I think it's time for them to say, you know what, we this one up a bit and back down. That's my view. So I thought if I told a bunch of people that I'd bought a farm so I could shoot pheasants, it might look bad, so I thought I'd better come up with another excuse. So I said, well, inheritance tax. I actually didn't know about inheritance tax until after I'd bought it.
Right.
I didn't mind, obviously, but the real reason I bought it is because I wanted to shoot.
Meanwhile, Clarkson, yes, that Clarkson, is somehow delivering punchlines with more political clarity than the official leader of the opposition. We are officially through the looking glass. And don't even get started on Starmer's economic vision. Or fog, rather. Watching him explain the economy is like listening to someone try to recount a half-remembered dream. Clarkson joked that cows have more financial sense, and frankly, the cows come out looking like they've got PhDs in resource management. Starmer treats politics like a courtroom, measured, cautious, technically correct. But the country's begging for someone who believes in something. Clarkson doesn't want to be PM, but he does know how to spot a leadership vacuum and fill it. With the one thing Starmer lacks: unapologetic conviction. Say what you will about Clarkson, but he never pretends to be anyone else. Starmer changes positions more often than a yoga instructor in a thunderstorm.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Clarkson, and in the next Parliament I'd like to see the government prioritising farming. We've been asked to diversify, and when we try to do that, the local authorities tell us we can't. That needs addressing.
One week he's the hero of the workers, the next he's cosplaying as a centrist finance bro. He's not triangulating, he's playing political twister with both legs in the centre-right and his head stuck somewhere between confusion and a focus-tested policy review. This was meant to be his moment. Tories in freefall, Boris banished, Sunak's poll numbers buried. Yet still, Starmer can't break through. Clarkson didn't just highlight this, he detonated it. And the laughter wasn't cruel. It was cathartic. You know it's bad when farmers with more tractors than social media presence have more political clout than the leader of the opposition. Clarkson practically suggested electing a badger would yield better results, and no one disagreed. Labour's best hope at this point might be photoshopping Corbyn out of existence and claiming Starmer was born directly in the middle of a centrist think tank.
Well, today, the country sent a message. And it wasn't whispered, was it? It was roared. From Doncaster to Dover, thousands of everyday Brits stood up and said, enough is enough. This was the Great British National Strike. And despite the media blackout, despite the political snobbery, it happened, didn't it? From the north to the south. In towns, the media usually can't even pinpoint on a map these days. Thousands took to the streets, not activists, not ideologues, just proud Brits who desperately want their country back. They're demanding an end to illegal immigration, net zero, inheritance tax, political attacks on our farmers, a national inquiry into the rape gangs, and to put a stop on the endless attacks on free speech and the undeniable two-tier justice taking over this country.
And visually, the contrast is brutal. Clarkson in his leather jacket, smirking with the confidence of a man who's been kicked out of more places than most of us have visited. Starmer, standing stiffly at a podium, reading off a script with the excitement of a beige PowerPoint on corporate compliance. Even his supporters look like they're suffering Stockholm syndrome. You can only say he's not terrible so many times before it sounds like a cry for help. Look, it's not that Starmer doesn't care, he clearly does. About polls, optics, not scaring the horses. But leadership isn't crafted in labs. It's not about being the least offensive guy in the room. It's about standing up even if you get roasted. And if you are going to be roasted, at least show some fire in your belly. Not the lukewarm reheat we got.
Your figures very much differ from what the figures that the farmers are holding up in their banners today. Do you think those farmers have been gulled, maybe, by some tax-dodging millionaires who want them out there demonstrating like this?
Well, look, I support our farmers. I think it's very important we do so. And that's why we put a huge amount into... We put £5 billion into farming over the next 2 years and food sustainability. It's hugely important to farmers.
On the streets?
Why are they there? Well, I think the most important thing that I can do is to engage in dialogue and be absolutely clear. For a typical case, parents wanting to pass on to their child a farm, so that's a typical case. The threshold is £3 million, and that means the vast majority, before anyone pays inheritance tax, that means the vast majority of farms will be totally unaffected by this. And it's important, I think, that I do keep restating that, because that's a very high threshold.
Our viewers will have heard that.
Clarkson's takedown wasn't just hilarious, it was a wake-up call. Starmer, with all his credentials and carefully curated image, got flattened by a man whose career high points include setting things on fire and yelling at livestock. That's the real humiliation. Starmer, the supposed statesman, got wrecked by someone who once made punching a producer a national debate. Now, Starmer's doing what he always does, issuing statements, softly backpedaling, hoping no one noticed. But we did. Because Clarkson, in 5 minutes, did what Labour's comms team hasn't managed in 5 years. Expose just how uninspiring this guy really is.
So what's your message to the new government? Do you think they get the kind of rural economy at all?
No, I don't think any of them have set foot outside Kentish Town for the last 35 years. No, they're a hopeless bunch.
So would you invite Keir to your pub, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister?
No, he's banned. He's the first person to be banned. He's actually on a board in the hall. He's banned.
Why? What have you got against him?
Hello? I thought you were running a news operation.
He's not evil. He's not incompetent. He's just beige. A walking, talking shrug in a tailored suit. Clarkson didn't just crack a joke, he cracked the illusion. And Starmer's biggest problem isn't that he looked weak, it's that he didn't look like anything at all. And yes, Clarkson will go back to reviewing tractors, offending vegans, and writing columns that read like the inner monologue of a very angry lawnmower. But at least he knows who he is. Starmer? Still blinking at the teleprompter, trying to decide if Labour stands for progress or just slightly kinder capitalism. If this is what post-Tory Britain is supposed to get excited about, we might honestly be better off letting Clarkson write the budget. Sure, it'd be mayhem, but at least it wouldn't be boring. And in a country that desperately needs vision, personality, and a pulse, not boring might actually be enough to win. Until Starmer finds a spine, or a soul, he'll keep fading into the background of his own political story. And if you lose a chess match to a guy swinging a hammer, don't blame the hammer. Blame the fact that you never made a move.